Have you ever stared at your tax bill and thought, there has to be a hidden pathway to make this number shrink?
Oh, absolutely. It's a common feeling.
Well, you are absolutely in luck today. We're embarking on a deep dive into one of the most powerful tools in your financial toolkit, tax deductions for individual taxpayers.
Right. Think of deductions as legitimate expenses for you, the individual.
Exactly, that directly lowered the amount of income the government can actually tax. It's like carving out a smaller slice of the pie for the tax man, leaving more for you.
A very important slice.
Our specific mission in this deep dive is to clearly differentiate between two absolutely crucial categories of deductions: deductions for adjusted gross income and deductions from adjusted gross income.
And understanding this distinction, well, it isn't just for tax experts, right?
Not at all. It's fundamental for anyone navigating their taxes because this distinction truly dictates how much you end up paying. And believe me, it can be a game changer.
It really can.
Okay, before we dive deeper, just a quick reminder that this deep dive is based on material from Farhat lectures.
That's right.
All content, examples, and explanations discussed here are derived from the comprehensive accounting resources at farhatlectures.com.
Great resource.
Whether you're an accounting student, CPA candidate, or professional, definitely visit the website for additional practice questions, video lectures, and detailed support to reinforce today's topic.
Yeah, very helpful stuff there.
And special thanks to Professor Farhat for providing this valuable material.
Indeed.
Now, let's talk about what we affectionately call the line on a tax return.
Ah, yes, the line.
Yeah.
That's the crucial starting point. Imagine your tax form, specifically the IRS Form 1040. It has this really important dividing line.
Okay.
For individuals, deductions are split into two distinct groups, neatly categorized by whether they fall above the line or below the line.
Above and below?
The ones above the line are your deductions for adjusted gross income, often shortened to for AGI.
Got it, for AGI.
And then everything that comes below the line is deductions from adjusted gross income or from AGI.
From AGI, okay.
That magical line itself, it's right there on line 11 of your Form 1040, where your adjusted gross income, your AGI, is calculated.
Line 11, the AGI line.
Exactly. So what exactly is adjusted gross income, or AGI? It's essentially a midpoint, a really important subtotal in your tax calculation.
A subtotal.
You start with all your gross income, everything you earned, and then you subtract those for AGI deductions we just mentioned.
The above the line ones.
Right. What's truly fascinating and powerful here is that this AGI figure isn't just some random number. It becomes the cornerstone for figuring out all sorts of other limitations and thresholds on certain itemized deductions later on.
So it affects what comes next.
Precisely. It's like the gatekeeper for what you might be able to claim after that line.
Okay. Give me an example.
Okay, a classic example. Medical expenses. You might have significant medical bills, right?
Yeah.
But the IRS only lets you deduct them if they exceed 7.5% of your adjusted gross income.
7.5%. That's the threshold.
Right. That's the threshold, or the floor, as it's
Oh,
often
sure.
called. Let's run a quick scenario. If your AGI ends up being, say, $100,000,
Okay.
then 7.5% of that is $7,500.
Right.
That's your floor. Now, if your total medical expenses for the year were like $6,000,
Less than the floor.
exactly, you wouldn't be able to deduct a single penny because you didn't clear that $7,500 hurdle.
Ouch.
But if you had $8,000 in medical expenses,
Then you're over the floor.
right, you could deduct the $500 that sits above that $7,500 floor. So you see, a lower AGI means a lower floor.
Which makes it easier to actually deduct those medical costs.
Bingo. This illustrates precisely why getting your AGI as low as possible right from the start with those for AGI deductions is such a strategic move.
Wow, that really clarifies how AGI isn't just a number, but like a critical fulcrum in your tax equation. It really sets the stage for everything that follows.
It absolutely does.
So, now that we understand its pivotal role, let's unpack those above-the-line deductions, the ones that get subtracted before AGI is even finalized. What kinds of deductions get this kind of preferential treatment, essentially carving down your income right off the top?
Excellent question. Because these above-the-line deductions, or for AGI deductions, are incredibly powerful. They're often called universal deductions.
Universal. Why is that?
Because they lower your taxable income, regardless of whether you end up taking the standard deduction or itemizing later on. They benefit pretty much everyone who qualifies.
Ah, okay.
Make sense?
Where do we find them?
They're listed on Schedule 1 of your U.S. tax forms. For instance, if you run your own business, like a sole proprietorship.
Like a freelancer or consultant?
Exactly. Your net business income or loss is handled here. All those business expenses you incur, rent, supplies, advertising, they're effectively for AGI deductions because your net income or loss flows directly to your Form 1040 above that AGI line.
So the business expenses reduce the business income before it even hits the main calculation.
Precisely. And it's not just sole proprietors. The same principle applies to deductions related to other income sources like farm income, rental real estate, or income from partnerships and S corporations.
Okay.
The expenses associated with these activities reduce their respective gross incomes, and that net figure is what makes its way to your main Form 1040, again, before your AGI is finalized.
Got it. What else is on Schedule 1?
Well, beyond specific business activities, Schedule 1, line 26, is specifically labeled Adjustments to Income.
Adjustments.
This
Yeah.
is a diverse group of items that directly reduce your gross income down to AGI. Some of the most common ones include educator expenses.
For teachers buying supplies.
Yep, if you're a teacher paying for classroom supplies out of pocket. Then there are deductions for contributions to health savings accounts, or HSAs.
Oh, yeah, HSAs are great.
They really are, those special accounts for medical expenses.
Oh.
Also, any penalties you might have incurred on early withdrawals of savings, and very importantly, contributions to an IRA, your individual retirement account.
The IRA deduction. That's a big one for many people.
Huge. These are often called above-the-line gems because they directly lower your AGI, which, as we discussed with medical expenses, can unlock even more deductions later on.
Right, lowering that floor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's kind of a double whammy benefit for your tax picture. All of these, and a few others, like jury duty pay given to an employer, are subtracted before you arrive at your adjusted gross income.
So that clearly lays out what gets taken off first, strategically lowering that crucial AGI number. Now that we've established our AGI, we move to the below-the-line deductions.
Right, the ones that come into play after AGI.
And here, I know individuals face a truly significant choice, don't they? It's where a lot of people feel they have direct control.
You've hit on the heart of it. Once your AGI is locked in, you move to the from AGI deductions. For individuals, you're presented with two main paths. You can either take the standard deduction or choose to itemize your deductions.
Standard or itemized. The big choice.
Exactly. It's worth a quick mention that personal and dependency exemptions, which used to be a major from AGI deduction, are currently suspended.
Oh, right, that tax law change.
Yeah, from 2018 through 2025.
Okay.
Though they are set to make a return in 2026, assuming no other changes.
Okay, good to know. So let's start with the standard deduction. What's that all about?
Okay, the standard deduction. This is essentially a fixed number that the government sets for you, and it varies based on your filing status.
Filing status meaning single, married.
Exactly. Single, married filing jointly, married filing separately, head of household. It's a preset amount designed to simplify tax filing for many people.
So you don't need a shoebox full of receipts necessarily.
Not for the standard deduction, no. For example, for the tax year 2022, if you were filing as single or married filing separately, your standard deduction was $12,950.
Okay.
If you were married filing jointly, it was $25,900. And for head of household, it came in at $19,400.
And these numbers change.
Oh, yes. Remember, these amounts are adjusted annually for inflation, so they typically nudge up a bit each year. You always have to check the current year's amount.
Got it. Is that it for the standard deduction? Just the base amount?
Well, no, here's where it gets even more interesting for certain taxpayers. There's an additional standard deduction.
An additional one. Who gets that?
This is a bonus amount given to taxpayers who are age 65 or over, OR, who are blind.
Ah, okay. So older folks or those with blindness?
Right. It's a way the tax code offers a bit more relief. For 2022, for a single taxpayer, this additional amount was $1,750 per condition.
Per condition. So if you're both.
Exactly. If you were 65 or over and blind, you'd get an extra $3,500. $1,750 times 2 on top of your basic standard deduction.
Wow, that adds up.
It really does. For a married taxpayer, that additional amount was $1,400 per condition in 2022. This can really amplify the benefit of taking the standard deduction for those who qualify.
That's a powerful bonus. It really shows how those seemingly small details can make a difference. So that's the standard deduction, essentially a predetermined amount, sometimes with a bonus.
Correct.
What about the other option, itemized deductions? This is where people start thinking about all those receipts they've been saving up, right?
Exactly. Itemized deductions are specific, allowable expenses that you, the taxpayer, list out individually on Schedule A of your tax return.
Schedule A. Got it.
These are the expenses you've actually incurred throughout the year. Common examples include those medical and dental expenses we talked about earlier.
Right, remembering that AGI floor.
Always keep that floor in mind. Other popular itemized deductions include state and local taxes paid, often called SALT deductions.
Oh yeah, the salt cap is a big deal too.
It is, though that's a complexity for another day, perhaps.
Yeah.
But yes, state and local taxes, home mortgage interest if you own a home, gifts to qualified charities, and in certain situations like federally declared disaster areas, even casualty and theft losses.
Okay, so a list of specific expenses.
Yeah.
Then what?
Then here's the crucial choice. You, as the taxpayer, get to pick the greater of either your standard deduction or your total itemized deductions.
The greater of the two.
Yes, you don't get both. You choose the path that gives you the biggest reduction to your taxable income. It's all about maximizing your benefit.
Makes sense. Can we walk through an example?
Sure, let's illustrate this. Meet David and Sarah, a married couple filing jointly. They bought a home in 2022.
Okay.
For that year, their mortgage interest totaled $10,200. They paid $5,600 in property taxes, made $7,000 in charitable contributions, and paid $4,100 in state income taxes.
Got it. So adding those up.
Right. If we add all those itemized expenses together, $10,200 plus $5,600 plus $7,000 plus $4,100, their total comes to $26,900.
$26,900 in itemized deductions.
Correct. Now, for a married couple filing jointly in 2022, the standard deduction was $25,900.
Ah, so their itemized total is higher.
Exactly. In this scenario, David and Sarah would definitely choose to itemize their deductions because $26,900 is greater than $25,900. That's a clear win for itemizing.
Okay, that seems straightforward. But what about that additional standard deduction?
Good point. Let's look at Sarah again, but this time she's unmarried and just turned 65. Historically, she always itemized, and let's say her itemized deductions for the year came to $13,500.
$13,500 itemized.
Now, her basic standard deduction as a single filer in 2022 was $12,950.
So itemizing still looks better, $13,500 versus $12,950.
At first glance, yes. You might think she'd stick with itemizing. However, because she's 65, she qualifies for that additional standard deduction.
Which was $1,750 for single filers in 2022.
Correct. So her total standard deduction actually becomes $12,950 plus $1,750,
Huh.
which equals $14,700.
Exactly. And that's higher than her itemized $13,500. So in this case, Sarah would surprisingly choose the standard deduction of $14,700.
Wow.
With that additional bonus, it's now higher than her itemized deductions. This truly demonstrates how just one change, like turning 65, can completely shift your optimal tax strategy. That's a powerful point, how those additional deductions can completely change the calculus. It's not always obvious.
Not at all. You have to look at all the pieces.
So, for clarity, are there any situations where you actually can't take the standard deduction, regardless of your numbers? Like, are you forced to itemize sometimes?
Yes. There are a couple of key exceptions to be aware of. A big one is if you are married but filing separately.
Okay, MFS status.
Right. If one spouse chooses to itemize their deductions, then the other spouse must also itemize. They can't take the standard deduction.
So you both have to do the same thing if filing separately.
Correct. You can't have one take the standard and the other itemize. You have to be consistent as a couple filing separately. Also, generally speaking, non-resident aliens are not allowed to take the standard deduction.
Okay, that makes sense. Anything else?
One last quick but important note. There are special rules for the standard deduction if you are a dependent.
A dependent, meaning someone else claims you on their tax return, like a child?
Exactly, like a child or maybe another relative someone supports. For 2022, for instance, a dependent standard deduction is the greater of two amounts, either a base amount, which was $1,150,
So $1,150.
or $400 plus their earned income they actually worked for.
Ah, so it depends if they worked.
Yes, but here's the critical gap. This calculated amount, whichever is greater, cannot exceed the standard deduction for a single filer for that year.
So for 2022, it couldn't be more than $12,950.
Precisely. No matter how much a dependent earns, their standard deduction won't go above that single filer threshold for the year.
Why is that?
Well, it's a way to ensure they get a reasonable deduction, especially if they have some earnings, while preventing them from claiming an unreasonably large standard deduction if they have high earnings, but are still legitimately claimed as a dependent by someone else, like their parents.
Okay, that provides some context. So even for dependents, there's a calculation involved.
There is. It's not just the basic single amount if they're claimed by someone else.
Wow, that's a lot of nuance packed into those numbers, but it truly illustrates how important it is to understand all the moving parts. It feels like navigating a financial maze.
It can feel that way sometimes.
But with the right map, like understanding these distinctions, it becomes much clearer.
Hopefully, yes.
So to recap our deep dive today, the journey from your total income to your final taxable income is profoundly shaped by whether your deductions are for AGI or from AGI. That distinction is key.
Absolutely fundamental.
And once you've established the adjusted gross income, the strategic choice between taking the standard deduction, including any additional amounts, or itemizing your specific expenses can make a truly significant difference in your final tax bill.
It really comes down to optimizing every step of that journey, finding the path that minimizes your taxable income legally.
Precisely. And knowing these distinctions isn't just arcane knowledge for tax professionals, is it?
Not at all. It empowers you, the individual taxpayer, to gain a clearer understanding of your own tax situation.
Right, to make informed decisions that can, potentially reduce your tax liability.
And ultimately, to feel more in control of your financial picture. It's about recognizing the hidden levers available to you within the tax code.
Absolutely. As you consider the profound impact of the line in tax forms and the clear distinction between above the line and below the line deductions, maybe think about this. What other lines or distinctions in complex subjects, maybe even outside of finance, might be worth a deeper dive?
Interesting thought. Where else could understanding a key distinction unlock surprising insights?
Exactly. Or perhaps even what specific financial documents in your own life might benefit from this kind of detailed analysis, looking beyond the surface to see the powerful choices hidden within. Something to ponder until our next deep dive.